Welcome to TTC Extra, a web and mobile version of PBS's To the Contrary with Bonnie Bay. Complaints of religious discrimination from Muslim workers are on the rise. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission reports cases have more than doubled in the last decade. In one of those cases, workers at meat packing plants in Nebraska and Colorado were fired when they left work to pray. The workers had asked for breaks to coincide with prayer times, but non-Muslim workers complained this was preferential treatment. So, Genevieve Wood, discrimination or not?
Well, without knowing every specific of the case, I don't think you can say, because the truth is what the law says is that employers have to, make reasonable accommodations. And the question then always what's reasonable, and that's usually a different definition depending on who you're talking to. But I think you're going to see more and more cases like this. I mean, there have been news stories on this in a lot of areas where you have heavy volume populations in many cases, not taking over, but becoming the majority of the workers in a plant. That changes the dynamics of the workforce there, and I think employers have to start thinking about that.
Well, if it does change the dynamics of the workforce, that's where you may have a problem. The law does say reasonable accommodation. I don't think it's all that hard to say what reasonable accommodation is in the context of the particular workplace. Now, if these workers were asking for one prayer time to coincide with their break, that's one time. If they're asking for 5, the strictest kind of worship practice, then it seems to me they may be getting well beyond what an employer has to do. Look, meatpacking work,
well, and I think the other
tough work, and to leave other workers there 5 times a day may not be reasonable, whether or not whether or not they like it or not. Just looking at conditions on the work line, how it operates, how tough the work is. Many of these workers, foreign workers, immigrant workers, workers newly arrived, work in meatpacking plants because it is such a tough job.
But also, I mean, there's another aspect here. I know when I travel to Islamic countries, and I've been to the Middle East about a dozen times, I don't wear shorts. I don't wear sleeveless shirts. I accommodate to their culture. It seems to me if you're a worker coming from another culture, you should accommodate to the culture that you are coming to visit, yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a dual responsibility between the employer and the employee, and lots of employers provide very generous vacation packages and time off that enables people to practice their faith accordingly. And for those individuals who have a stricter or who have more demands for their faith, that they need to take off more time or more regular time off, I think that they need to consider that when they're looking at employment, the way that you consider things like child care or choices if you're going to have flexibility for extra education, all sorts of other decisions that we make in our lives.
I think it definitely has to be some reasonable accommodation. That's why it's spelled out that way in the law. I'll just tell you, as an employer, our family has car businesses, and we have this wonderful salesperson who, was taking his rug out and doing his prayer, and at first, we were kind of surprised that, we'd never seen this before, but just talked to my husband. He said sales have been fantastic.
Well, Bonnie, I really do have to object. I really have to object to your analogy. I really do think that there is a very big difference between not wearing shorts in a Muslim country and someone asking for reasonable accommodation of a religious practice. And I really think we ought to make it clear we're not talking culture here. We're talking religion. And our Constitution.
But wait a second, Eleanor. I mean, wait a minute. It is also, I know that I would upset because of their religious beliefs.
But not yours.
But wait a minute. Because of their religious and cultural practices, men are not used to seeing skin on women. I accommodate that even in 95 and 100-degree temperatures when it's very uncomfortable. I would not go to Saudi Arabia to look for a job and expect to be treated like an American woman in this country. And I think there is a degree of unreasonableness in coming to find work in a very different culture and expect them to accommodate even your religious beliefs.
Well, I'm sorry, you're taking issue with the Constitution here. There have been many cases which have indeed sided with religious practices that in fact cause some inconvenience on the job. And what you're citing is not the right that we protect is the right of the individual asserting the right. You're talking about your accommodation to a culture once you go there. I really think it's very important.
But aren't you going down the slippery slope of, I'm a Wiccan and we need to pray to whatever 10 times a day, and so I need 10 breaks because it's my religious belief?
And who would have unreasonable accommodation? I mean, I enforce this law, Bonnie, and I can tell you that it has been the law now for 30 years. And this law has not been that difficult
to
enforce.
But I think it will increasingly become more difficult as this country becomes more diverse. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing that it becomes more diverse, but I'm just saying we can't pretend that as more people come in with different cultures, different faith backgrounds that have differences of requirements, that it doesn't change the workforce.
This is a secular society. This is a secular society. We're not going to change so that if you are so totally immersed in your religion that you've got to practice it much of the day, you are into unreasonable accommodation. But I think that we know how to draw the lines here because we've had a lot of practice at it.
All right, now I'm drawing the line. We're out of time. Thanks for watching TTC Extra. Whether your views are in agreement or to the contrary, please join us next time.